Now it's time to start the debate. First of all, we will start off with the affirmative constructive speech on Japan should abolish capital punishment. The affirmative first speaker, will you please stand up? Are you ready?
Yes.
Timekeeper, are you ready? You have 4 minutes. Please begin your speech now.
Thank you, Ms. Chairperson. My name is Shuyukan. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We on the affirmative side believe that Japan should abolish capital punishment. Plan 1. The Japanese government shall abolish execution in 2016. 2. All necessary measures shall be taken to implement this plan. Advantage 1. Human rights. Present situation. Human rights are not protected. Although capital punishment is supported by the majority of Japanese, a 2009 report by Amnesty International concluded that Japan's treatment of condemned inmates violates its obligation under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It proclaims, quote, "Every human being has the inherent right to life. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his life," unquote. Also, according to David Johnson, professor of sociology at the University of Hawaii, death row inmates in Japan are not notified of the date of execution until an hour or two before it occurs. Moreover, the order of execution is arbitrary. Because they are in constant fear that today will be their last, some of them develop mental illness. This cruel punishment is done by the state in name of justice, while more than 2/3 of the countries are abolitionists in law or practice. In fact, if applied adapted, death row inmates' life and human rights will be protected. Importance. This advantage is very important because the respect for human rights will be enhanced. Second optional protocol to the same covenant proclaims, quote, "Abolition of the death penalty contribute to enhancement of human dignity and progressive development of human rights," unquote. Advantage 2. Misjudgment. Present situation. Innocent people may be executed. There are always possibilities of misjudgment. In the US, until 2009, 133 people have been released from death row when new evidence of their innocence is found. In Japan, the same happened to 4 death row inmates. Improper procedure, poor quality of defense lawyers, 40 eyewitnesses, and especially Japanese prosecutors' over-dependence on confessions, which is often made in an unfavorable condition for defendant, may result in an unfair execution. HEnDA former death row inmate was found innocent 34 years after the crime, when the court found his confession was forced and the prosecutor's crime story was made up. In fact, if applied adapted, innocent people will not be executed. The death row inmates will have more time to apply for retrial. As a result, justice will be better served because the universally guaranteed right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty will be truly realized. Importance. This advantage is very important because as Shigemitsu Dando, former Supreme Court judge claims, quote, "In case of death penalty, once executed, the dead person cannot be compensated at all. This is indeed a crime committed by the state itself," unquote. If capital punishment is abolished, 2 advantages will occur. Advantage 1, human rights will be protected. Advantage 2, innocent people will not be executed. For these reasons, we beg to propose. Thank you.
Now it's time for questions from the negative team. The speakers from both teams, will you please stand up? Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes. Please begin now.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Masahiro Kusunagi. I would like to begin asking questions to advantage 2 Could you explain the advantage to its importance? Do you mean wrongful judgment is bad or wrongful execution is bad? Which is it?
Both.
So what is the link? So you gave 4 examples of death row inmates who were proved innocent. 4 examples.
Please.
You gave 4 examples in your constructive speech
Yes.
where the death row inmate was proven innocent. But they weren't executed, were they? So you haven't explained the link between... Can you explain the link between wrongful judgment and wrongful execution?
What do you mean by link?
Okay, sorry, I'm moving on to next question. So in your present situation, you talked about confessions.
Yes.
Yes? So can you give any other
No.
causes why false charges happen?
Improper procedure, poor quality of defense lawyers, and faulty eyewitnesses, and especially Japanese
Right.
prosecutors' over-dependence
Could you
on
summarize them up in points? So confessions, procedure,
and poor quality of defense lawyers.
poor quality of defense lawyers.
Yes.
3.
And faulty eyewitnesses.
Sorry?
Faulty eyewitnesses.
Quality of eyewitnesses. Okay, thank you very much. Now moving on to advantage 1. So first, you talked about human rights, but please define what a human right is and who decides what human rights are.
Every human, as we said in our constructive speech, and every human being has inherent right to life.
Who decides that? Who says that? Is that the amnesty?
No.
Sorry, what was that?
International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights.
And why should Japan follow this?
Yes.
Why? What is Japan's advantage?
Because Japan signed and ratified.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Japan signed it.
Signed it. Okay, thank you very much. Now, in your effect, you said, quote, enhancement of human dignity. Could you explain what you mean?
I didn't say it in our effect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, speakers. Timekeeper, are you ready? You have 4 minutes. Please begin the speech now.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Tasuku Mori. By introducing the plan, 2 disadvantages will occur. Disadvantage 1, loss of deterrence. Present situation 1, we will look at the psychology deterrence. Humans fear death. This is a simple and invariable truth. According to Tadashi Uematsu, a professor emeritus at Hitotsubashi University, quote, a criminal with any reason will balance his gains from committing the crime with the losses if he is caught. End quote. In Japan, over half of the condemned criminals raise an appeal in court to postpone their execution. Therefore, we can say that even the criminals have reason and do not want to die. This is deterrence. Present situation 2, we will look at the statistical evidence. A. According to Statistics Canada in 1966, the year that capital punishment was abolished, the murder rate was 1.25 per 100,000. 10 years on, the murder rate has risen to 3.03. And this is the graph. It is increasing, okay? B, since the year 2000, the year of the abolishment of capital punishment in Illinois state, within 4 years, murder rate has increased by 150 cases. Based on this and the statistics of all the other states of the USA, the University of Emory concluded that 1 execution deters on average 18 murders. Importance. The affirmative plan will cause the 104 condemned criminals not to be executed. Statistics from the Emory University directly will mean almost 2,000 innocent citizens will be murdered. We cannot let this happen. Disadvantage 2, more order for the bosses of Japanese mafia, meaning 暴力団. Present situation. According to data from 暴力団情勢 in 2009, there were 204 arrests made on murder related to Japanese mafia, which is over 16% of all arrests made on murders in Japan. Therefore, we can state that 暴力団 have significant effect on the peace and order in Japanese society, and they cannot be ignored. Effect. From Oda Susumu, a professor of 国際医療福祉大学総合教育センター, quote, if capital punishment is abolished, the bosses in the 暴力団 will be able to order his subordinate to kill a target and threaten to kill him if he doesn't. Of course, the boss won't be condemned to death, and so he will have absolute authority over his subordinate. Therefore, we can say that it will be easier for the Japanese mafia to commit crimes, particularly murder. Importance. 1. There are 80 to 90,000 members in the Japanese mafia who are all potential criminals. When the numbers are this large, just a small change in the factors that affect crime can cause a significant impact on Japan. Importance 2. In the Saga Nyuin Kanja Shasatsu jiken, an ordinary citizen was mistaken for a Japanese mafia member and killed by accident. This shows that ordinary citizens also can get caught up in mafia troubles. According to 暴力団情勢 2009, out of all the mafia shootings that took place in Japan, less than 5% were against other mafia. More than 95% were against non-mafia members, such as politicians, police, and ordinary people. This is a big problem. For these reasons, we, the negative, strongly oppose the opposition plan. Thank you.
Now it's time for questions from the affirmative team. The speakers from both teams, will you please stand up? Are you ready?
Yes.
You have 3 minutes. Please begin now.
Okay, about your second point. Sorry, I'm Kimika Fujisawa. I'd like to start my question. About your first point, in your present situation, can you summarize your first present situation?
Of disadvantage 1?
Yes.
Humans fear death.
Yes.
Okay, and Tadashi Uematsu said that a criminal with any reason will balance his gains from committing a crime with the losses if he is caught.
Okay, so you showed me an evidence of one execution prevents 18 murders, right?
Yes.
Can you show me the? Can you tell me the source of it?
The University on Emory.
Okay, you said 2,000 innocent citizens may be killed if we abolish capital punishment, right?
Yes.
What is the evidence?
Evidence?
Yes.
So, one execution deters on average 18 murders, and there are...
Okay, thank you. About your second point, about your DA2, your point means that Japanese mafia is deterred by capital punishment, right?
Japanese mafia?
Yes. So I'm asking,
Yes.
your DA2 means that mafia is deterred, Japanese mafia's crime is deterred by capital punishment, right?
Okay, yes.
How many mafia-related crimes will increase if capital punishment is abolished?
Well... Washimi Kazuo said, a crime journalist, said, a crime organization like the Japanese mafia carefully plan out all of their crimes, and the balance of gains and losses are weighed out completely
Okay,
rationally.
thank you. Is capital punishment the only code of Can you give me a scientific evidence that that the crime committed by Japanese mafia and capital punishment is related?
I said in constructive speech, so if capital punishment is abolished, the bosses in the Boryokudan will be able to order his subordinate to kill a target.
Okay, what's the source of evidence?
From Oda Sumu,
Who is he?
a professor of.
Thank you.
Thank you, speakers. It's now time for the negative attack. Are you ready? You have 2 minutes. Please begin the speech now.
Thank you, Chairperson, judges, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kazuki Yoshi, and so I'd like to start my attack speech. So attacking 82 first, they showed us the examples of HEnDA case, but please know that those cases were found to be innocent. And also, these days, there are no false charges because of A, B, and C. A, attacking false confessions. The National Police Agency in 2008 has made it necessary to record the investigation. So there's very now little chance that an innocent victim will be forced to confess. B, advances in technology in DNA testing have made huge progress since the 1980s. The present technology called the multiplex PCR assay is so accurate that it will be wrong once in every 4.7 trillion times, which is over 1 billion times more accurate than the DNA fingerprinting technology used in 1985. C, attacking wrongful witnesses. In Japan, we have 3 trial court systems. This means that the criminal is tried 3 times and the evidence is checked 3 times. Therefore, there's a little chance of human error. And furthermore, please note that their importance stands when a forced execution happened. However, even if there's a forced charge, forced execution does not take place. Because, according to Yomiuri Shimbun in 2010, an executive in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs once said, quote, if the Ministry of Justice suspects that the case is a forced charge, even a little bit, it postponed execution so that no forced execution cannot take place. So let's move on to 81. They said about human rights, but they didn't explain how to define human rights. It is unclear advantage, and we cannot see the advantages to Japan. And 2, in law, we Japanese agree with capital punishment is not against human rights. Japanese Constitution 13 says, 公共の福祉に反しない限り, meaning human rights are only assured if the person does not harm the welfare of society. This is what the Japanese people agree with, and this is why 81 is not important. And the court that reflects Japanese people's way of thinking concluded that capital punishment is not so cruel and it's not against Japanese constitution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, speaker. Are you ready?
Yes.
You have 2 minutes. Please begin now.
Hello, my name is Hideto Chiwada. I'd like to start question. About our first point, you made 2 attacks, right?
Yeah, 2 big attack points, and 1 attack point can be divided into 3 attack points. One is about...
thank you.
Yes.
Please summarize about the second one.
Second other point is about the link between forced charges and forced executions. So even if there's a forced charge, the government try to postpone the execution because they are suspect it's forced charge. So forced, yes.
Thank you for your question. Next about our second point.
Yes.
You made 3 attacks, right?
Yes.
Why isn't capital punishment cruel?
Sorry?
You said capital punishment is not cruel, right?
Yes.
And why isn't capital punishment cruel?
So with the second, we attack 2 points. The law and the court that reflects Japanese people's way of thinking, that reflects our moral. Admit that.
Thank you. Please explain more about the way of Japanese thinking.
So you had to explain the Japanese way of thinking and human rights, but you didn't. So we decided that the court or the law reflects Japanese people's way of thinking.
Please repeat.
You had to do that. You had to define the human right, but you didn't. So we did that. Japanese way of thinking is reflected by the law and the court.
Finally, you said about constitution, right?
Yes.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, speakers. You have 2 minutes. Please begin the speech now.
Hello, my name is Takuma Sakaki. I'd like to start my attack speech. First of all, their first and two disadvantage mean almost the same. About their first disadvantage, we have two attacks. One, in presentation, they saw the evidence of deterrence. However, that is totally dubious. Scientific studies have consistently failed to find convincing evidence. In New Jersey Disparity Study Commission Report 2006, Professor Jeffrey Fagan of Columbia University Law School claims, quote, many of these studies use incomplete data or are otherwise flawed, unquote. Two, in effect, they said crime will increase. However, that is not true. According to Global Study on Homicide 2011, conducted by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, lethal violence is often rooted in context of poverty, inequality, low levels of education, and a weak rule of law. Thus, homicide rate is unlikely to be influenced by the effect of extremely rare events such as execution. Next, about their second disadvantage. In effect, they talked about Japanese mafia. And the first of all, Japanese mafia means Yakuza. According to Professor Miyazawa Koichi at Keio University, quote, Yakuza observe the rule and tradition and show their particular ethics in their actions. This is because they can form a Yakuza's group they relate to by admiring and sharing their own unique value system and code of conduct in their Yakuza culture. Do you really think capital punishment works as a deterrence for members in these society sick groups? Yakuza people have totally different Yakuza people have totally different ideas from us. So their effect does not occur. In these three reasons, their point cannot stand. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker. You have 2 minutes. Please begin now.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Masaki Nando, and I start question time. First, to our D1, and you showed us some data. Okay, then what's the logic of this data?
Which point about which attack?
Yeah, and Keio Miyazawa example evidence. What's the logic behind this?
Okay. Japanese mafia commit murders regardless of capital punishment.
Okay, thank you. That's enough. Thank you so much. Next, do you think Yakuza people are afraid of death penalty? Do you think? Which?
Pardon?
Sorry. And do you think Yakuza Yakuza is afraid of death or not?
No.
No, they never. Okay, thanks so much. Next, an attack to D1. Sorry. And you said that our two disadvantage is almost same. What's the logic? Why do you think so?
You answered Japanese mafia are deterred by capital punishment. And your first disadvantage means loss of deterrence. So.
Okay, so what you want to say is that, sorry, thank you. Next, in attack to D1, you showed the teacher about Columbia University. And please say it again.
Pardon?
Please say the Columbia. Oh,
thanks
so much.
Thank you, speakers. It's now time for the affirmative defense. Are you ready?
Yes.
You have 2 minutes. Please begin your speech now.
Hello, my name is Hideto Uchiwada. I'd like to start our defense speech. First, about our first point, they attacked our point by saying we failed to explain what human rights is. But in the cross-examination, we said that human rights is a right that all humans have since they are born. Next, they said capital punishment is not denial of human rights. However, that is wrong. The cure not only deprived the victim human rights and also taken away the most precious thing in the world, life. As long as the criminals are born as human, they have the inherent right to live just like us. So the attack is invalid. Next, though they talked about the Japan Constitution, but it is possible to change it by adopting our second plan. Next, about our second point, they said about DNA, confession, and so on, and possibility of misjudgment is very low. However, that is not true. First, they are not 100% reliable. It was believed as perfect evidence in those days. This mistake can happen now, even with more advanced methods. Second, there are still many factors causing misjudgment, such as improper procedure, poor quality of defense lawyers, and faulty witness and prosecutors over defendants on conventions. In these points, our second point stands. Next, they say the government postponed the day of execution. However, that is wrong. If judicial system had worked well, nobody would have been released from death row when they turned out to be innocent. Sakamenda, former death row inmate, claimed that the system that tore his life apart is still unchanged. He spent 34 years in prison. With this fact, do you still say the justice system works well now? This shows the judicial system is not working now. We defended our both points completely.
Thank you, speaker. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You have 2 minutes. Please begin your speech now.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Masaki Nando, and I started defense speech. First, in the type point 1, they give examples from all other countries, but we have examples from all over the world. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, there's a data that in 16 countries, 5 years later, murder rate rose after the abolishment of capital punishment. These countries are Spain, Belgium, Georgia, Nepal, Canada, Lithuania, the United Kingdom, Ukraine, Malta, Cyprus, Serbia, Armenia, Mexico, and Philippines, in 60 countries. Deterrence has been proven in so many countries, in 16 countries. Next, and they also said that deterrence has no effect, but we'll give statistics in Japan, ladies and gentlemen, in Japan. According to Tsukuba Daigaku Kyoju, Professor Oda, the reason why kidnapping happens so rarely nowadays is because of deterrence. Quote, between 1965 to 1985, every kidnapper was executed without exception, creating a certainty in people's minds that kidnapping meant death penalty, end quote. During this period, kidnapping cases fell by nearly 80% from 414 to 86 cases. Therefore, deterrence has large impact on kidnappers. Next, in attack point 2, and they say that the effect was unclear, but according to 私住む国際医療福祉大学総合センター教授, quote, before the abolishment of capital punishment in Italy, politicians, police, judges could not be killed nearly as early as they are now, end quote. This shows the capital punishment does significantly affect crime organizations. And they also attack that the mafia do not think about abolishment of capital punishment, But according to crime journalist Washimi Kazuo, quote, crime organizations like the Japanese mafia carefully plan out all of their crimes, and the balance of gains and losses are weighted out completely rationally, end quote. From this, we can clearly state that they will consider punishment, and there's... Sorry, thank you so much.
Thank you, speaker. It's now time for the affirmative summary speech. Are you ready? You have 3 minutes. Please begin your speech now.
Hello, I'm Kimika Fujisawa. I'd like to start my summary speech. Let's summarize this debate. Their first point was deterrence, but we attacked it by saying scientific studies have consistently failed to find convincing evidence, and homicide rate is unlikely to be influenced by the effects of extremely rare events such as execution. So their first point does not stand. And their second point was crime committed by Japanese mafia, but we attacked it by saying such people commit murders regardless of capital punishment because they have values and codes of conduct which are totally different from ours, so their second point does not stand. Next, let's move on to our constructive speech. They attacked our first point by saying we failed to explain about human rights, but we defended it by saying all the human rights is a right that all the people have since they were born. Also, they talked about Japanese constitution, but we defended it by saying it is possible to change it by adapting our second plan. So our first point still stands. Next, they attacked our second point by saying there is a possibility of misjudgment, but we defended it by saying they failed to consider all factors causing misjudgment. And there are still many factors, like Also, they said the government can postpone the day of execution, but we defended it by saying about Sakai Menda, he spent 34 years in prison. No mistake should occur in both sentences and execution. Also, they failed to attack our second point's importance, which is our And as we said in the importance of our constructive speech, misjudgment in the case of capital punishment is so serious because life can neither be irreversible nor be compensated by money or anything. They failed to attack this point. Next, let's move on to the importance of our points and their points. As we said in our evidence on deterrence is always dubious, as we said in our attack. Our inherent human rights should be much more valued than their dubious deterrence without enough proof. And we cannot achieve public safety by taking our citizens' life. We can truly defend our citizens' life when their inherent human rights, including their legal right of being presumed innocent until proven guilty, which we mentioned in our second attack, in our second advantage, and they failed to attack this point. It is fully guaranteed. Next, let's move on to the probability of our points and their points. They said that as we said in our attack, their DA1 and DA2 is almost the same, and their both points are based on only dubious evidences. And though they showed a lot of evidence about that, they cannot declare that capital punishment has deterrence against crimes. In this point, their probability of DA1 and DA2 are very low. And in conclusion, our points of human rights and, thank you.
Thank you, speaker. It's now time for the negative summary speech. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
You have 3 minutes. Please begin your speech now.
Thank you, Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, judges. My name is Masahiro Kusunoki. I would like to begin by comparing the effects of all the arguments. So, disadvantage 2 first. Please look at this. Japanese mafia. This was attacked that the mafia aren't very rational, but we successfully defended that crime enterprises need to make profits, and so they will clearly balance their gains and losses. And we backed this up with examples from Italy, where the police, politicians, and judges were killed much more easily after the abolishment of capital punishment. So the effect of DA2, please stretch. Now, DA1, we gave logic and statistics. Please note that they did not attack the logic, so please stretch this, judges. And now statistics. We gave examples of Canada, which were attacked, saying that, but Canada's case was just one example, and we gave examples of 16 other countries where crime rate rose. This was defended that these were dubious, and these are not scientific and cannot prove deterrence. We gave the example of Japan with statistics of kidnapping and explain the logic behind this. So judges, this is not dubious. Please take this argument. And so to summarize disadvantage 1, disadvantage 2, crimes will definitely increase in Japan because we have the special cases of the mafia and the kidnapping. And so let's move on to advantage 2, please, misjudgment. All sentences contain misjudgments, please note. But the key to this debate is the link between wrongful judgments and wrongful executions, judges. Please note this. So present situation, do false charges happen? We attack that DNA testing is now in place. They defended that this is not 100% reliable, but please note that the possibilities are extremely low. And we gave other factors like recording the investigation, but they defended that weak defense lawyers are still happening. there is now the 3-trial court system in Japan. And so these possibilities are extremely low. Now look at the effect, the link between wrong judgments and wrong executions. In their constructive speech, they gave 4 cases of falsely condemned criminals, but these were released, ladies and gentlemen, and not executed. And so there is no data of wrongly executed criminals in their speech. And they defended with evidence from Sakai Emenda, but please note, he too was released. And so they have not explained how wrongly convicted criminals are going to be executed. My attack speaker showed that, with source that if the guilt is suspected, the execution is postponed. So false charges rarely happen. Even if they do, wrong executions will rarely happen. So advantage 1 now, the effect is unclear at best. How will capital punishment enhance human rights, ladies and gentlemen? This is unclear. And also, in the question time, I asked who defines human rights, but we got no answer. So we think the people should define this as the rights assured to humans who do not harm public welfare. Why should judges take up this definition? It's because in Article 13, it says so, and this is the reflective opinion of the Japanese nation. So let's compare DA1 and 2 with AD2 in terms of potential impact. AD2's potential impact. In 2010, only 2 people were executed. Bearing this in mind and the fact that possibilities are small, the potential numbers are extremely small. Compare this with DA1 and DA2. Crimes happen all over Japan. There are 80 to 90,000 Japanese mafia in Japan. And so this potential impact is large. And thank you very much.
Thank you, speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased that the tournament is almost over with a big success. I'm sure you have learned a lot by participating in at least 5 rounds of debate, and maybe you're looking forward to listening to the result of the final round. But before that, I would like to make some comments on the final round. The final round is very good, and it was difficult for judges to make a decision. The decision is split 4-1, and since the schedule is way behind, we didn't have time to discuss concerning the final round. So I'd like to give you my personal comments on this final debate. The affirmative team presented a very well-organized constructive speech. The first advantage talked about human rights. We have to protect human rights of even murderers. And the question is whether we should protect their rights or not by abolishing capital punishment. The negative team argued we don't have to worry about the human rights. And they based their argument on the Constitution, whereas the affirmative team based their argument on Amnesty International. And the negative team made a good argument that our laws are part of reflection of what we think and how we should protect the society. And that argument was well taken in this debate, so that the impact of the first advantage was a little bit small. As for the second advantage, that is, innocent people will not be executed due to wrongful charges. This argument was good, but the negative team came back with very strong arguments, saying that the affirmative team was only talking about old cases. And recently, we have more advanced technologies, and we pay close attention to the procedure of our investigation as well. And also, the negative team presented the link argument that even if we make wrongful charges, when the decision is doubtful, the Japanese government tends to postpone the execution. And that argument was not clearly argued against by the affirmative team. So the second advantage's impact was not very large. Now let's look at the negative disadvantages. The first disadvantage talks about the loss of deterrence, and that was a good argument with lots of evidence. And the affirmative team did a very good job to argue that there's no scientific evidence to prove the link between the existence of death penalty and lower rates of murders. And that was a good argument. But the affirmative defense speaker came back with very strong pieces of evidence arguing that in 16 countries, the rate of murders rose significantly, and also they talked about kidnapping cases in Japan as well. As for the second disadvantage, as the affirmative mentioned, this is not an independent disadvantage. This is an example of the impact of the first disadvantage. Maybe shooting cases by mafia or yakuza will increase. And the point is whether we have deterrent power with regard to the existence of the death penalty. And on this issue, I think the negative team did a little bit better to defend their position that there is deterrence with regard to the death penalty. So overall, it was a very close debate. It was difficult for us judges, but the decision was 4-1 for the negative team, Nara High School. Congratulations.
Congratulations to all the winners. We will now begin the award ceremony for the school.